Hello gamers, Pet here. Welcome to Devlog for Fight of the Primitives number 2. In this video I'm going to show you the progress for the game, but before that don't forget that I'm also live streaming the whole thing. So if you go to twitch.tv/gamerpet, that's where you are going to find my live stream. Also if you go to gamerpet.com, which is my website, you will see probably a widget there that will tell you if I'm online or not, and I'm also doing other Unity tutorials and so on if you are curious about game development and how to use Unity and stuff. I'm not sure how interesting this video and this series is going to be for you, but at least it's going to be for me, because I always will have something to look back at and see exactly the progress between, and even if I don't finish this, I will still have a little bit of a story or something. I don't know. Anyway, as I've said, the whole development that you see here has been recorded live stream, and there are a lot of hours. Today I streamed for 5 hours, yesterday for 10 hours, the day before again something like 5 hours. So it is moving a little bit slower because mostly I'm also learning myself a lot on how to use some things optimally and how to use bold in order to use those things. So bold Fight of the Primitives is a fight where you are kind of like a god and you have the primitives, you know, a cube, a sphere, a cylinder, and so on. You are making them fight, and the purpose is to make them fight for as long as possible, so you will make as much points as possible. So that's kind of the scope. The idea is that you are playing with both of the factions. So you are building a unit for one faction, then you are building a unit maybe for another faction. They are going to fight, and the purpose is to keep them fighting for as long as possible. They will reach the end of the castle, something like this, and when they do, the castle will receive damage. And if one of the castle dies, it's also a fail state. But we haven't got to that place yet. So let me actually show you what's happening right now. I changed the cursor. You can now I see it's more of like a testing purposes. I'm also checking out a cursor pack from the asset store, so I decided to let's just do it. Again, this whole thing is a little bit zoomed in. Normally the field is it's going to be much larger, at least. Depends. I'm still going to test it right now. Our screen is only like this. So as you can see, one more button has been popping up. We are now having a unit called the healer. I've also done improvements to the AI a little bit. So, and also I'm using nav mesh functions, for example, a nav mesh agent. So that's how they are moving around. They are actually getting a random point on the castle, and then they are just going to walk into that direction. And if they intercept with any of the units, they will start the combat. Let me actually make it full. Let's not make it full screen yet, because I want to show you the UI. Look, it's a test UI. I mostly worked to implement it mainly, so I can view the name of the unit, the health bar, as you can see there, and there is also this border around the portrait which shows the color of the faction. That's the main idea. Again, I haven't bothered with on making it look pretty. I only cared about the functionality right now, and then later when we go to the polish phase, then we are going to deal with this. So let's also summon a healer, which is a sphere, as you can see. Before that, let's actually zoom in so you can see it better. You can't see the UI, mostly because my monitor is a little bit higher, so I'm not recording it like that. Let's get this guy over here. Let's summon more of the faction 2 units, because they are... Oops, the healer is in trouble right now. The healer is in trouble. The healer is going to die, but let's summon another heal unit. As you can see, I also got some particle in, mostly to test stuff up, to have some feedback that they are fighting. You see, this is when they receive damage, it's more like, hey, look, this guy is getting healed by 2 healers. Nice. Okay, something like this. Another thing that I might do in the final version of the game, I guess, or I don't know, some at one point, one thing that I will do is the ability to maybe this is in trouble. Let's summon some more. Now it's kind of have to create a balance, and then I will tell you more exactly on what I accomplished. I also added a camera with some bloom and AA, so they look like bloomy. It's kind of enjoyable, to be honest, on how it looks. So let's see exactly what we have accomplished. I also got an error. Yeah, it's sometimes when it's getting destroyed. I will have to debug this some more, but not right now. So let me actually show you something else. I have created a hacken plan for the project so I can track my progress better. I think that's fairly important. Well, depends on how you're doing it. This is why I haven't done it at the beginning, because it was kind of in my head, but now I want to write some things down because it's getting a little bit more complicated, and also as a practice of me organizing myself tasks and trying to estimate the tasks like into subtasks and so on. And it's kind of like a proof when you are like, oh yeah, wait, I didn't thought about that, so let's add it to the task. It's always kind of like a little bit of a trigger, right? So as you can see, I've added the particle feedback. So whenever a unit is healing, I'm doing a little bit of some particles that I found on the asset store for free. The same thing comes with the fighting. This is only temporary. It's not ideal the way I do it, because every time I'm doing a heal or some damage, the particles get instantiated and they never get destroyed. And I will take care of that later when I will look into object pooling, and I will talk about that later. I changed the cursor look, as you can see here. I also kind of wanted to do some improvement on the healer, but I decided to cancel it. So let's actually look at the healer. So this is the healer, as you see over here. He's a sphere, and when you build him, he's just walking into a direction. But for example, let's say that those two guys are going to fight. You see this guy is going there and he's like healing. If I'm selecting another small thing that I did is right now I'm summoning units into their own game object, so it's a little bit better to organize myself. This is the healer, as you can see, unit name string healer, current health 15, maximum health 15. This is his speed, he's much lower. This is the heal that he's doing. This is the heal speed, so he's going to do a heal every 3 seconds. Actually, the current healing ally is the fighter, that's the target that he's currently healing. Castle to attack, he's going to attack the faction to castle. This is mostly so he knows where to go. The heal search radius, and this is how this guy works. Like, and also heal range radius. So he's going to heal only the units that are in his 3 range radius, but he's going to search for injured units in his 6 range. So for example, let's say that I have an ally at range 5. He will see that he's injured, so he will start to walk towards that injured ally, and when he will reach the radius of 3, that's when he's going to start healing. And I also added a boolean called is injured, and that's how the ally is checking to see, that's how the healer is checking to see for the units that are injured. And also it's unit active, which is something new. So when I'm summoning the unit, I'm setting this to true. This is something really recent that comes to the UI. So let's actually dive into the healer. One thing that I have to mention is that you know how in the last video I had, like the faction, the unit. As a child, you have the model itself, and then I had the sphere collider and then the box collider. The box collider is a trigger that's only being used when you want to summon the unit, which is basically right now. This is the trigger right now is the one that's doing this red thing. but once you summon the unit, that becomes disabled, so I'm not using that anymore. So you might be like, hey, how you are doing the range thing? One of the reasons why I disabled the sphere collider, besides having to do checkouts with that collider and maybe collision matrix and stuff like that, was that you know that the parent, which is the unit itself, which also has his own main collider, when I wanted to do this thing, when I'm hovering the cursor over, you see I'm doing this UI thing and I'm also changing the cursor. This was triggering also when I was hovering over the sphere collider, because the parent is getting the colliders of the children, so that's how this behaves, and this kind of sucked a lot. So I'm doing this different. I also updated the fighter, the warrior, and also the healer. Another thing that I did, I changed the layer for the units. They are not longer on the AI layer. I have to delete it. They are on the each unit is on its own layer, faction 1 or faction 2. And the reason why I did that is that you are going to see it now. Let's look at the healer. This whole thing took like 10 hours. This whole thing that you see here. Looking back at it, it's not really that complicated. I've already done it without any problems to the wire and it works fine. But you know, when you live stream, well, it wasn't only this thing that we did in 10 hours. It was less than that, but it still took a long time. It's also, things take a little bit longer when you are live streaming because I'm iterating with the chat and so on. So again, the healer this is the state of the healer. It's unsummoned, which I actually switched to a macro, so all the units are going to use the same mechanics. There were no point to actually copy them and so on. And then if I have to do an update to the unsummoned state, I have to do it to all the units. The idle is just this is only for the healer. I'm doing like a stopping distance, which is basically this. If you look at the healer on the nav mesh agent, the main problem with this was that, as I told you, the healer was healing at 3 range. One thing that happened was that he was stopping at range 3, but the moment your enemy was getting out, even by a little bit, you are out of the heal range. So right now I'm kind of stopping him a little bit closer than range 3. So in case your ally starts moving, you kind of have a chance to do another heal. That's one thing. Another thing that I've done with the stopping distance is that he was kind of always moving. Every heal tick, he was moving closer and closer maybe to the ally, and I kind of didn't want to do that. I don't want him to go to melee range. And another thing that I have to add, this whole thing, the healer part, can be greatly improved. And maybe I will at one point, because I've learned a lot on how to do stuff. And one thing that I would like to do, now that I'm creating some units and I'm creating some AI, I would really like to get into behavior designer, behavior trees basically, so I can create proper UI with behavior trees. I own Node Canvas. Unfortunately, I don't own behavior designer, which is an Unity asset that's having behavior trees, and it has interaction with balls. So that's kind of sucks. I'm not sure what to do for now. Now, again, this is why I'm setting up the stopping distance mainly. Then you get to this this walking state where I'm mostly resetting those two variables, and I'm also setting an attack destination to the castle, and I'm also doing a break because you see, whenever you are in coroutine, which is the wait thingy that's waiting, if I'm dying, I kind of wanted to have another break thing so I don't. It's mostly for debugging purposes. So this is what I have been using for the sphere. I'm using physics overlap sphere, and it's this thing, and it's really beautiful. It's really beautiful, and it gets a position, and the position is the position of self. I actually this took me like 20 minutes to figure it out what was the problem, because it wasn't happening, and I had no visual feedback to see what it is happening. And then the position that's over here is actually global, so it was 000 global and not on the self. So yeah, lesson learned. I'm also inputting the radius, and I'm also having a layer mask. And this is the thing with the layer mask. Right now, if I look at the graphs, I have layer mask with value faction 1. We will get to this later when we are going to talk about the warrior, but this is what happened here. In order to optimize things better, the overlap sphere is running in the update scene, which means that it's running every frame, right? And the overlap sphere is kind of like the sonar of a submarine, right? If you've seen the movies and whatnot, right? The submarine is in the middle and he's like launching a sphere among him, which goes like this, right? And the range is the radius of the sphere. And this is what I'm doing every frame, right? In a way I can, you see, check for allies. I was doing this before in an wait, so I was triggering this every 0.5 seconds, but then this kind of created some problems, and I think there was also a little bit of a bug with the for each loop, like the wait was making the for each loop go over every 0.5 seconds and not like super fast. Maybe that's a bug, I'm not sure exactly, but ever since I switched to update, it's working fairly great. So again, this is what the overlap sphere is doing, and it's super great that you can specify a layer mask. So right now, this overlap sphere is only checking for collisions with units that are with game objects that are part of the faction 1 layer, and this is great optimization there, right? And this is kind of, I'm going to go real fast. As I said, I will be able to improve this. So I'm doing a for each. So the overlapping sphere is going to get all your allies near your radius, and this is putting them into a list. And let's say that I have 3 units in the vicinity of me, and I'm doing a for each for all these 3 units. So in the body, I'm checking to see if I'm not self. I'm kind of trying to ignore myself. I don't want to heal myself. This is kind of like a design decision, because he's detecting himself also, and I don't want that. Then we move to this part where we are checking to see if it is injured. If you are not injured, I don't care about you. If you are injured, then we move forward with a null check, where we check to see if the lowest health ally has been set. Now, the first time you get to this, it's for sure it's going to be null. And what we are doing is we are setting the lowest health ally to the first item that is just coming on. The first item that I see, that's the lowest health ally that I know, right? So the moment that the next one is going to trigger, we are going to have this branch where we are checking for the current health of the lowest heal ally and the current health of the new ally that we are just receiving. And basically we are comparing the current health of the lowest heal ally and the new ally that I'm checking up. And if the new ally that I'm checking up has a lower health than the lowest heal ally, then I'm setting this new ally as the lowest heal ally. And then I go back into the for each loop and I check again. So basically it's going like this. I check to see if it's not self and I'm ignoring myself. I'm checking to see if I'm injured, and then all the rest of the allies, I'm checking to see if which one is the lowest, and to each of them I'm setting up the lowest ally. And when this for each is going to be done, I basically know which is my lowest heal ally, because I run to all of them and I check them. I check each of them individually. And it was a little bit complicated because at first I wanted to do it to a dictionary and then do a dictionary sort, or maybe a list sort, sort by health, and then I get the first index, and that will be it. But it wasn't possible to do a sorting. It's not possible to do sorting in Bolt, something like that. So again, I'm going to exit, where I'm checking again to see if the lowest heal ally is being set, because there is a problem. For example, if I'm spawning the healer by himself, this is going to fire. There there aren't going to be any items, any allies to put them in, and this is going to, the exit is going to check immediately, and what's going to happen is that this value is going to be like, hey, it's null, hey, it's null, I have nothing to heal, and I, like, chill out. This is why I'm doing a check, and I'm running a reset heal target, which is basically, I'm checking this again. As I've said, it could be super improved. So let's go back to the healer. You see, this is constantly running, and I don't really want this to constantly run. This is why I'm saying that it can be always improved. Also, this guy is constantly getting a new position for the castle where to move. This is why he's kind of jiggling. So yeah, this is not how I should do it, but I've stopped. I will rethink at one point and improve upon it later. Right? So once he knows the lowest heal ally, like this has been set, I'm setting this ally as a current heal ally. I'm setting the destination to the position of the current heal ally, so I'm actually moving into his position, because keep in mind, my search range is 6, my heal range is 3. So I'm going to move towards him. So basically this castle thing is not triggering anymore, because I have a target where to move at. But also at the same time, this is still running, and it's always checking for a lowest heal ally. So just in case there is a new ally that's going to require healing, he's going to update that itself, which might create problems. Like if I have again, it could be really improved by a lot. Maybe I have an ally here, maybe I have an ally here, this guy is here, and he will be stuck like in the middle of them, like who to heal. But at one point one of those two will die, and then he will have his target. So yeah. And then I'm also running an update here. This was basically heal, but I kind of split them apart to clear these up. So when this is going to be set, when the current heal ally is not null, then I have to do this thing. I also have to check my current radius to see that I'm in his range. So I'm getting the position of the current heal ally, I'm getting my own position, I'm subtracting that value, and I'm getting vector 3 magnitude. So I'm checking the vector 3 magnitude with the heal range radius. That way I know that I'm in this range, and if I'm in that range, I'm going to heal the ally. If I'm not in that range, I'm going to check to see if the distance is greater than my heal search radius, which is 6, because this is what might happen. I will have an ally to heal, but he's much faster than me, so he's going to run out of my range, and at this point I want to reset the heal target, and I want to look for a new target to heal. And then I go to the healing, which is something like this: update current heal ally. If it's null, I'm going to break and I'm going to walk. I'm going to go back into walking. This is the wait loop. The delay is my heal speed. Again, I'm doing a break in case the unit dies, so I won't have that coroutine running. Again, when this is also like a heal tick. He will not pick a target and heal that guy to full health. He will do a heal, then he will go back, where he will actually check again for the lowest heal target to heal. Then he will heal that target. Then he will go again and check, and then heal that lowest heal target, and so on. It's like a tick going, you know, heal, checking, and so on. That's how it goes. I also created this super unit called heal ally, which is just sending the message heal, receive healing, the heal amount, and the target is the unit that I'm healing. I'm also doing a debug log so I can check it out, and I'm also, as you can see, I'm spawning the green particles, which is mostly to have a visual feedback that I'm healing that unit. Simple as that. I will have to revisit this later and see how that works. So I also rewrote the warrior range, the warrior walk. I made him also use the overlap sphere, but there is a problem with this. I cannot specify the faction 1 or the faction 2. I want one or the other, because this AI, the fighter warrior, is being used by both the unit, the fighter and the warrior, from faction 1 or faction 2. So I need to populate this layer mask at the beginning. And the thing is that the layer mask is actually a bit mask. So not going to go into details of what that is meaning, but it's not enough to specify him the layer. And this is what I do. I do a layer mask, get mask. So layer mask, get mask. It's easy with code. Then I learned how to do it with bolt, and it became easy with bolt. Layer mask, get mask, and you specify the layers that you want, and then what Unity will output is the integer of the layer mask created from layer names. And this is kind of like a weird number. Look, for example, he's using an example with user layer A, user layer B, which are on the layer 10 and 11. And so basically those two become 2 at the power of 10 and 2 at the power of 11, which equals with this number. So that's what you have to input to the layer mask, and not the layers themselves. It's a difference. It's a huge difference. So the way I'm doing it is that I'm setting the variable enemy faction, which I'm getting this as with the detect faction super unit that I've done, which is this one. Fairly simple. Then I'm creating a new list where I'm feeding the enemy faction. So because I use a detect faction, this code looks at, hey, if you are faction 1, then the enemy faction for you, it's faction 2. Hey, if you are faction 2, then the enemy faction for you is faction 1. And that's all it's doing, and it's outputting this into this output, right? So this is how I'm inputting this, which is getting inputted into the layer mask, which is requiring a string of a list of type of string. And then I'm setting the variable layer mask to this unit. And let me actually show you. Let's actually build a fighter. Let's select him. And if you look at the graph over here, the layer mask is 18192. If I'm doing another one here, and I'm looking at the faction 2 units, this layer is 4096. So it's different, right? So yeah, I've also done this. Let's also look at the UI. I've created this UI. Super simple. Everything that's handling by the UI is in the UI manager. I finally started to do stuff with the UI manager. What I'm doing here in the launch is that I'm setting out these graph variables: faction border, unit portrait, unit name, health bar, current health, max health, which are basically those UI components. I basically need a reference to them because, for example, unit name, I need a reference to this game object so I can update the unit name. I need a reference to the health bar so I can change the slider from here, right? So besides me doing the get transform index 1, 2, and so on the code, I'm setting them over here, and then I'm just referencing the variable. So in case I'm changing the order from here, I will be able to update everything in one go from here. So yeah, this is how I'm doing this. Maybe it's not optimal, whatever. So this is how we are doing this. It was actually fairly simple. Unit mouse over, this is only triggering, I'm getting a reference to the unit that I'm mousing over. So the units themselves, they have a new, besides the 2 state machines that they are using, the AI and the health system, they are now also using the on mouse over, which is this simple script over here. On mouse over, I set this to true, unit is active, and I'm setting this on the on mouse over. Well, I'm mostly checking to see if it's active, because the problem was that I was building the unit and I was clicking it, this was triggering the on mouse over because the mouse is actually over the unit. And I don't want that. It's unsummoned. It should be like having a special status, right? It was like this. So I'm doing a check if that's active. Then I'm setting the cursor to this new cursor. This is the pack that I will review later on. Then I'm getting the reference to the UI manager and I'm sending self. That's it. So the UI manager knows the unit that I'm hovering my cursor, my mouse over. So I'm activating this UI. I'm just doing this. Boof, it's active. And then I'm just doing this. I'm getting the slider maximum value. I actually want to read more about the slider, but I'm getting the maximum value of the slider, and I'm setting that. Let me actually look at it. I'm setting this value at the health of. I'm setting this value at the health of the maximum health of the unit, right? So I'm setting this to 40, so it will always be like 40, for example, right? Then I'm doing a reset once. This was kind of like a little bit buggy because on update, basically this only happens when I mouse over a unit where I get the information. I get the faction, I get the unit name, I get the health and the current health, right? And then the update itself is taking care of updating the health because the unit name and the faction is not going to change, right? Only the health is going to change. So this is why I do this here, right? And I created a super unit called set text, which is having the game object, which has the text. I'm getting the component text mesh pro UGUI, and then I'm setting the text, which I just received from here. And I will use this all over the place. Setting text to the maximum health, so this is also getting updated. And then I have the faction 1 and the faction 2, which is setting the image. This is the faction border, which is just an image. If I am to change the position, as you can see, it's just a square that I placed in the back. That's it. Let's look at how the health is being updated. I just figured this out about the do once. I was like really concerned that I'm constantly going to send this event mouse exit unit, which is this one, which basically sets the UI back to being disabled, and unit mouse over it's setting to null because it was a problem that this unit was remaining on, and I needed a way to set this to off. Again, it was a little bit of some bugs that were happening, and this was the solution to this whole thing, right? And I was a little bit concerned that this update is going to constantly check, and if you have no unit, this will trigger to null, and I will basically always going to trigger this. Every frame I'm going to set the info panel UI to null. It might not matter, but maybe it has some frames issue, right? So the way I do it is I only do once, but I need a way to reset the do once. Otherwise, this will not trigger again. It was a problem. You know what was the problem? I was hovering over a unit, and that unit died. That unit disappeared. The on mouse exit is not triggering then. So I was left with this unit on, while the unit was not under my cursor anymore. So this is what this is kind of doing, right? So I'm setting the health bar to the current value of the current health of the unit that's mouse over, and I'm setting the text, and that's how I'm also updating the text. So let's look at this beauty in action. I'm not going to full screen so you can see it better. Let's select this to look at. Right, it's being set to 25, it's being set to 30. Look, they are receiving damage. Let's spawn another one. Let's spawn a healer, so this guy will heal. You see, this guy is healing. And now this guy is in trouble right now. He's going to receive damage. And as you can see, this is a problem. Let me actually show you this problem. Let's set up the speed for the healer to something like 3. Very fast healer. He's going to move. This guy is going to engage the healer. He's attacking the healer right now. The healer is still receiving damage, but he's not in range anymore. And this is how the AI of the warrior is working, like we did it in the past. It was that he locked. He was only made to fight another warrior and not someone that's ignoring him. And he also didn't need to look for a new target. Right now, the warrior picks the lowest heal target because we improved the AI. We made with the experience that I got from making the healer, I made this warrior much better. Like, I'm still using the same for each, where I'm getting the lowest health enemy. So the warrior is much smarter now. He's attacking the lowest health enemy, but he's only picking one and he's sticking with him. So what we want to do is change the fighting to be a little bit like the tick that happens with the healer. Do a shot, think. Do a shot, think. Maybe not like that per se, but only improve him a little bit. So I'm checking the range. This is what I have to do. This is this task. This is the task, warrior unit improvement. Make the warrior fighter stop attacking if the unit is out of their range. Rethink the fighting system. If the unit gets out of his melee range, look for a new unit to fight with. And this is all that I will do. I don't want to create like a super fancy something, but this will actually stop him hitting a unit that's out of his range. It will be pretty easy to do. Right? So what else did we do? We created a heal unit, then we got the particle feedback, we improved the unit. We are currently also testing some more the unit info, and we are going to start working on the archer unit. And the archer unit, you will see that in the next episode. And again, we have to create a prefab, add variables, health, system, colliders, and mesh. We need to add the UI button, and this is going to be a unit for the faction 2. The faction 1 is going to have the fighter and the healer. The faction 2 is going to have the warrior and the archer, right? And I want to this unit, the archer unit, I'm going to learn. When I'm going to create the archer unit, I'm going to learn some more because I'm going to add different behavior to it. So I'm going to apply this experience maybe back to the healer and the warrior. This is why I'm not improving them too much right now, because I want to get this experience from this unit and from the other units that I'm going to do. Right? Maybe later, as I said, I will look into behavior trees to see how to make them better. So this is the archer. This is how he's going to behave. He's going to have low health, decent range, decent speed, and I will have to see how fast I will make him attack. But this is going to be like the challenge of the archer. To instantiate an arrow that's going to go from his position to the enemy position that it's hitting, not dealing any kind of damage until the arrow is hitting the enemy. And I don't really want to have any kind of logic to the arrow. Maybe I want to do the calculation in the AI of the archer. I don't want to use collision to deal damage of the arrows, right? So that's one thing. Second, I want to make it so since the archer is going to be faster, if the archer is going to have an enemy in his melee range, 1.2, something like that maybe, he's going to run back. And this is also going to be another challenge because he will be able to run back even when he's in the shooting arrows or maybe on the movement. So he's going to run away. And we have to think exactly where to run away, for how long to run away, and other stuff like that. It's going to be a lot of tinkering, but I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. Then, I also created for myself, everything which is done here, I plan to do in the next 4 days. This is this sprint. This is this milestone. And in the 3rd week, I want to look into object pooling. Because again, I'm instantiating a lot of stuff, and it's better to get the object pooling early in place before I create other kind of units, because I do plan to create other stuff. particles and other stuff like that that need to be instantiated and destroyed. So this is why I want to look into an object pooling. It might not be that fun for me, but I don't know, I have to see how we are going to do it. And then I have this in the backlog. Bam! Bam! This is in the backlog. I have a bug, the unsummoned bug. And since I'm going to put this at the end, I created even a video for me, which is this. It's not hard to do, but if I'm doing this, when that yellow unit is going to die, this remains again because the on trigger exit is not triggering when that unit is dying. That's the thing. That's the thing. And right now, if I just do it like this again, it's going to be fine. It's kind of the same thing which happens with that other things. Okay, so I want to do a spellcaster unit. I haven't written any descriptions for that yet. The spellcaster unit will have something like a fireball, as you can see here. He will also have a fire aura. So when he detects enemies around him, he will deal damage every tick, like fire damage or something like that. A fireball spell. Then I want to create a summoner unit. The spellcaster is for faction 1. So faction 1 will have a fighter, a healer, and a mage. Faction 2 will have a warrior, an archer, and a summoner. And with the summoner, we are going to go a little bit crazy. It's basically going to be a unit that's going to spawn summon various units. For example, he's going to spawn something like 2 or 3 rats. Rats are going to be another unit. They will be like very small, very fast, something like 1 hit point, and they are going to have some damage or something like that. That's what I want. Then I will need to go to look more into the game manager stuff. Right now, I'm only clicking and building, and I'm mostly working with the AI, but there is no game there yet. So I have to implement a timer. I'm actually going to use this asset that I already covered on my website called timers, and let's go to reviews, Unity asset reviews. And if we go a little bit down, this is what I'm going to use, timers and clocks, which is a script, which is, an implementation of a timer. I don't want to implement that myself. So we are going to have a timer that's going to go from something like, 3 minutes to 0. And when 0 is going to trigger, we are going to go to the lose state. Or I also wrote win state and lose state. There isn't going to be a win state. It's always going to be a lose state, because even you're either going to play until the castles get destroyed, which will trigger the lose state, or when the timer runs out, which will trigger the lose state. So we don't really need a win state. We are not winning the game. We are winning the game by making points. So I will leave them for now there. Then I will need to implement a score system. Then I will need to create some logic for the castles. They don't have damage right now. And when I do that, I will also need to improve a little bit on the AI for the units when they are attacking the castle, a little bit. And then I will need to think of a resource system and how much the units costs so I can build them. And how I will gain resource. I have no idea. Maybe I will gain a number of resources every unit. I was thinking maybe I will do something like it's kind of like a crazy idea. You are using score to build units. Maybe. I don't know. And I also wrote some stuff over here. On the score point system. It's going to be something like you gain points where you summon a unit. The unit costs equal the points that you get. It's kind of like not applying with the stuff that I just said on how the resource is actually your points. I don't know. It's kind of an idea that I have to think about. Every time a unit receives damage, I get 5 points. When a unit dies, I get 5 points. Every second that unit is alive, you get 1 point for all the units that are on board. And I'm going to do that is basically I'm going to count the children of faction 1 units and faction 2 units, and then I'm going to add that number into the score. And I'm basically going to count the units that are under these two game objects. So this is kind of it. This is where I am at right now. Then we are going to do some polish, create a menu screen, make a way to save the score. And then of course we will have to do optimizations. Whoa, this guy is like super fast. So it's going to be like a nice journey. I do have to say I'm pretty happy on how, you know, like where I was like a couple of days ago and where I am now with the healer, for example, and other stuff, or the units that I created. So anyway, I hope this was interesting to you, like an interesting learning experience, and interesting to see for you to see my progress. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to go to twitch.tv/gamerpet and my website gamerpet.com. So thanks for watching. See you soon. Goodbye.